So last week in the demo session, I just did some introduction to the Selenium. So how this Selenium came into picture, how many other tools are there for automation, what kind of testing that we perform, and then what else. So I have also discussed about certain things in and around that testing, what kind of testing that we would do and where we are involved, right? So today I'll just give a brief, on the entire course, and by the end of the course, where we stand in, and then I would go ahead and discuss on the Selenium. Okay, the Selenium components, the Selenium architecture, and Selenium history. Okay, so we would discuss on those lines once I brief you on the entire course content, right? So what we learn from here, the very first one is about Selenium history. So we would need to learn about its architecture, right? Architecture, Selenium architecture, and the kinds of tools the Selenium has and how those were evolved, right? Evolution. So we need to understand each and every component of the Selenium, right? So post that. So I would say that we would go ahead with C sharp basics. Okay. So we would go ahead with C sharp basics. And then post that, we would also discuss when I say basics. So the basics would be covering all the OOPS concepts, right? So all the OOPS concepts, all the basics of the C sharp. So we would learn how to write programs in C sharp, right? So once that is done, then we would go ahead with identifying a a test application. We also need a test application, right? Web application, right? So we will try to identify the suitable web application which we would use throughout the course in order to automate, right? So we are here to do our automation testing. So along with this, we would also discuss about high level about the test strategies. So I will discuss about this test strategies. Okay. So various strategies that we can take in order to proceed with your day-to-day activities. So we need to deal with automation testing when we need to come up with some process in our automation testing. So we need these strategies. So what kind of strategy we need to play with respect to the test automation, right? And why? So we would discuss about that as well. Okay. And then we would discuss about Selenium objects identification. What is this objects identification? Somebody can also call this the same concept of identifying the objects, or we can say like the elements. So there are some identifiers. Selenium has some identifiers. So we will talk about all those identifiers, what kind of identifiers we have, and in which scenarios, what kind of identifiers we can use, right? So we will talk about all those. We will have the live demo session for each of the identifiers as well. Okay. And then we would go ahead with Selenium methods, inbuilt methods. So Selenium has got certain inbuilt methods. We would also talk about the most prominent and as well as most frequently used methods, right? So we will discuss about them as well, which can also include about the implicit, explicit weights and your synchronization mechanism with respect to the web pages. So why this synchronization mechanism? Again, we use web pages and web applications for the automation, right? So I mean, we automate the web applications and test the web applications by using Selenium. So there would be some lag in loading the page, right? Have you ever observed it? When we try to open some page, to load that page, it would take bit of time. Probably that would be because of the network, the speed of the network to which you have connected, or the speed of the server to give back the information, right? So response of the server, I mean response time of the server. So there could be n number of other reasons. So there could be little slowness, or sometimes it could be faster in loading, right? So that is something which we would see how to handle those, right? Why to handle those? First of all, we need to understand why to handle that, right? So we would see those as well. And then we will talk about page object model. What is that? Page object models, right? So we would talk about the page object models. That's again a framework related concept. So we would talk about that part. Okay. I mean, how to organize our web elements, whichever we are trying to recognize. So that also we would deal with, we would discuss, right? And then what we would do, we would go ahead, we would come up with NUnit framework. Then we will go ahead and then come up with a NUnit framework. So wherein here we would discuss about the NUnit attributes or the methods that this NUnit framework inbuilt provides us. And as well as we also will try to understand, sorry. So we also would try to understand why we need a framework, right? What is this framework about and why we need this, right? So these are something which we would try to understand when we discuss about the NUnit framework. And then we will go ahead. We will try to understand test reports, right? For any tester, be it a manual tester or be it a uh, what we what we say, be it a automation tester. So for any person who is from QA, who is part of QA, so they all would predominantly need a test report by the end of the execution, right? Based upon the test report itself, we would be able to talk whether that particular build that we want to promote for the higher environments from the QA is good to go or not, right? Am I correct? Am I correct? So that's where test reports play a prominent role for. So, so what does this test reports contain? So what elements we include in it? So we would see those details. And then this also involves this also involves uh, your additional, um, reporting tools like Allure and Extend reports. These are prominent in the market, which usually people use and they customize their test reports, right? So we can do that customization using Allure and Extend. And then we will talk about BDD. So what is BDD? Anyone?
Behavior driven
Behavior driven?
data.
Behavior driven?
Data framework.
Okay.
Behavior driven development.
Right. Correct. Behavior driven development. Okay. So it stands for behavior driven development. So why it is called as behavior driven development? So our primary focus would be on the desired behavior of the system, right? So first we would focus on the desired behavior of the system. Then we emphasize that the development process is driven by the desired behavior. So you decide on the behavior first, and then you develop your application with respect to that particular behavior that you desired for, right? That's why it is behavior driven. So in the behavior driven, so you have something called writing the test cases or the test scenarios in Gherkin format. So we would discuss on this part. So how to write the scenarios in Gherkin format and then how to automate them, right? So we would discuss on that as well. And then we will go ahead. We would do some Azure DevOps integration as well. So what is this Azure DevOps integration? Why is it required?
CI/CD pipeline.
Right. Somebody said CI, CD. Okay. Pipeline. Right. So what is CI and what is CD?
Continuous integration, continuous deployment.
Continuous integration, right?
And continuous deployment.
Continuous integration is correct. And this one is continuous deployment. Okay. It's not, sorry, continuous delivery. Sorry, not deployment. My bad. Delivery. Okay. It is continuous integration and continuous delivery, not about the deployment. We never talk about deployments anywhere. Okay. So if we have deployed something, that is fine. We deploy it, but still, when I say we as a team, okay, developers develop the application code, and then that particular code base would be finalized for the release candidate, and then it would be deployed into the QA environment for testing. So now we are the gatekeepers, right? So we do various levels of testing. We perform the testing and we confirm whether it need to be promoted or not. So now in the manual way, if we do this, it might take lots of time and efforts. So that's where what we did, we have come up with some certain framework, certain tool for the automation, certain way of creating the test reports in an automated way. So everything we have come up with in automation, right? Suppose that what we wanted to do, we also wanted to do this integration also in automated way. What is that? It is about this continuous integration and the continuous delivery. So we would automate it using the pipelines. So it can be Azure DevOps, it can be Jenkins, it can be AWS, or it can be GCP. So any other cloud platform, right? We can use it. But for us, when it comes to C#, so C# itself is a Microsoft developed platform, right? Or sorry, not platform, I mean language. And we use Visual Studio, right, for development. So all the platform and as well as the code, I mean the language, the programming language using which we code. So those all are related to the Microsoft. So that's where prominently the I mean most of the people, they use Azure DevOps for the integration of this continuous, I mean integration and the continuous delivery. Okay, so we would try to understand the Azure DevOps integration. So within this Azure DevOps integration, there are multiple ways of automating and then generating the test reports. So one is running or executing test cases from test plan. Okay, so we can trigger our automation execution from the test plan. So you would have a manual test case, and for the manual test case, we will link the automated script to the manual test case, and then we can trigger that execution from the manual test case itself, from the test plan. So that is one way of execution. The other way is directly trigger from build pipeline. So what is the advantage of running it from test cases, from the test plan? And what is the advantage of running it from the build pipeline? Any guesses?
Based on events, test will be
Sorry, come
triggered.
again.
Based on some events, test will be triggered in the build pipeline.
The build pipeline, correct.
Yeah.
Based on the event, correct. It auto trigger, right? We will set the auto trigger. So whenever build is deployed, so it would auto trigger and it would execute all the test cases, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Previous one
So
is something like time based,
this one,
scheduler based. First one is schedule based. Irrespective of the event, it will be there.
no. We are not scheduling anything. Here you would have the manual test cases.
Here actually we have to execute
And we
it. I
link
think they are
these to the
automatic
automated
Selenium.
scripts. And we can execute from here as well, from the test plan. So the one which you said for the right side one, like the trigger from build pipeline, so auto trigger whenever there is a deployment happen, right? So that is correct. That's the advantage of this. And it would execute all the test cases and generate the report for us. And the other one is, let's say I have 2000 test cases, my regression suite. The entire suite consists of 2000 test cases. Now, whenever it auto triggers, probably those 2000 test cases get executed, right? Now, there is a very minor release that is planned, and probably at that time, I might not require to trigger the entire build pipeline, right? I can choose specific test cases out of those 2000 from the test plan and then trigger the execution such that those specific test cases can be executed, right? So that is the advantage that I would get when I run from the test plan. So I would showcase those and then try to make you people understand what is this exact difference that I am talking right now and the ways how we can trigger the execution, both from the test plan level and as well as from the build pipeline level. Okay, clear on this part? So this is something which we would talk about. And what else? What else left? Anything that we missed to cover? PDD, Azure DevOps, test reports, NUnit framework, page object model, Selenium methods, Selenium objects identification. We would also deal with error handling. Or I could say failure handling, right? And we would also learn how to debug the code. This is very much important, right? So we come up with certain code. We also need to know how to debug. What is meant by debug?
Identifying issues like in which line we are getting errors or something.
Right. So debug is the process of identifying, isolating, and fixing the errors within the code. So you probably have come up with certain code. You try to run it, it fails at certain point. Okay. Let's say you have some 10 lines of code. So within 10 lines of code, at the fourth line, it is failing. It is not executing properly. Okay. So now you need to know how to debug this, right? So you need to understand the process of isolating it and fixing that, how to fix that, right? So that is something which we also would discuss and deal with, and we would learn about that as well. Okay, that aspect is very much important for the developers. So it's not for, when I say developers, it is not just about the people who develop for the application. We are also developers. We are also called as developers. Software development. What is that? We are called as SDETs, right? Software development and engineering in test, right? So that's why we are called as SDETs. Correct. So we are also developers. We also write the code, but we write the code to test the application, to break the application, literally. Correct. So what else? We would also deal with how to handle test data. Is it not important? It is very much important, right? How to deal or how to handle with the test data. So how we handle this usually? Probably we try to hold the data in external files. So what are those files in which we usually have our data saved? What kind of files we use?
Excel sheet.
Excel, JSON, XML. What else?
Database.
Database,
SQL.
right? So we would also we would also deal with learning these things, how to open Excel, read the data, or how to read the data from the JSON file, how to read the data from the XML, how to read the data by connecting to the database, right? So we would also deal with this. We would try to understand them. Okay, clear on this part? What else? What else you would learn? So for each and every topic, so once the topic discussion is completed, I mean, it might take multiple sessions for us, right? So once the topic is completed, so I would share um, that particular topic related course material as well. Okay, clear on this part? So what else is needed?
Where you add the spec flow? Sorry.
Sorry, come again.
Spec flow. Spec flow.
Spec flow. That is what BDD.
We did
Gherkin
okay.
format. Yes, this would cover the spec flow because spec flow we use for BDD.
Okay.
Okay, okay. Let me mention it.
So are
Are
we
we going
going
to cover these collection topics in C Sharp, like collections and generic streams?
Spec flow. Yes, we cover no C# basics. So there we would cover
How
here.
many sessions are there for C Sharp actually?
For C sharp, it would be probably 5 sessions for C sharp, wherein I would discuss, I would touch base some of the topics, from the OOPS concepts and as well as from the um other areas like collections and then arrays. So we would discuss on those lines. And then rest of the things. So in the day-to-day activities, wherever I try to implement them, I would be explaining those as well. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
In
Nothing.
5 class C sharp, can able to write the code.
Sorry. Come again.
You say that 5 classes for the C sharp no, coding part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is it capable to write a code with zero knowledge of C sharp?
Yes. The thing here is, so the basics that we cover, so that would help you to understand the C sharp, and as well as, it would help us in our test automation. So those concepts I would be covering. Okay.
Okay.
So that's where I'm saying, in case some of the concepts which may not be covered in those 5 days of sessions, right, of C sharp. So those in the day-to-day activities, wherever I start including them, I would again teach regarding that. Okay. So I would first teach about that concept and then, move ahead with the Selenium concept related to that part, right? So that's how we deal with our sessions. So definitely you would be able to, uh, you know, correlate them, and then, what I could assure you is your confidence levels would boost up definitely.
What are the advantages of using C sharp over the Java?
Advantages.
Yes.
So see, if it is C sharp, Java, or Python, its ultimate goal is to automate, right? So your only advantage is about automation and saving the effort, right? So that's the ultimate goal when it comes to automation. Now you can take even JavaScript or Node.js, any other scripting language, and then go ahead with some other tool as well and do the similar kind of automation. Okay. So it's not about C sharp or Java or Python, but when it comes to the industry specific, so when I see the industry specifics, so wherein there are over 3 billion applications that still run on C sharp. Okay. So we would discuss in our further sessions. So wherein, so when I say these 3 billion applications which run on .NET, right? So there they primarily use C sharp as the uh, backend language. When I say backend language, so C sharp would be in the microservices. So the coding with respect to the microservices is into C sharp. Okay, front end again they can come up with some CSS, HTML, and JavaScript and other stuff to elevate those buttons and other stuff, right? But the backend part is primarily developed in C sharp. Okay, so such cases, so we go with C sharp, right? So instead of going with Java, we go by C sharp because the resources and the development are C sharp full stack developers, right? .NET full stack developers. In those are the cases where you would see mostly this Selenium C sharp or Playwright with C sharp or what is that? Some other tools. Okay, any other tools that support C sharp. So they go by C sharp. So if the applications are developed with the backend runs on Java, that is your microservices or the APIs, those run on Java, then there they mostly follow Java Selenium. And if something related to Python, then they select for the Python. because your resources in the team would be,
Yeah,
sorry?
depends on means project to project.
Depends on the project to project. It depends on the technology that you use in your application. So if that application runs on .NET, so we go by C#. If the application is running on Java, we go by Java. So when you see primarily in olden days, probably somewhere around 20 years ago, the 20 to 25 years ago, okay, let's take 20 years or step back to 25 years. So there initially you had more number of systems on Java, right? Almost all the applications at that time they used to run on Java, and we used to hear Sun Microsystems, right? Sun Microsystems, have you heard about it?
Yeah, it was the main company, right?
Right. It was the main company who came up with this Java, JDKs, SDKs and all. Okay,
Yeah.
till then nobody has this like development kit, a software development kit, SDK, right? Nobody was aware of. So they made the life easy by coming up with some software development kit, which really helps with the preloaded methods using which we can develop, right? So now people used to run lots of applications on Java platform. So using the JDKs, right? So now once that is done, then came into market the .NET. So .NET is an altogether a primarily more integrated system. Okay. So most of the projects again they started migrating to .NET. Now in the recent times it is all we all talk or hear about AI, right? Gen AI. So Gen AI is the booming platform now. So where again you would see most of the applications or the language models, those were developed on based on Python, right? The packages like transformers and many other packages are there. So all those packages, those run on Python, right? And those also require huge infra for us to execute, for us to run those language models and other stuff, right? So that's where people go by Python, right? And there are certain applications where microservices run on, I mean, the Python language. So people go by Python. Clear on this? So what I have seen in my experience, like overall 14 years of experience, so I have come across the applications that widely run on Java and .NET. Okay, so when it comes to backend, even in the recent projects where I worked, there were certain microservices that were running on Python, but they have migrated them to .NET. So I see very few services, I mean APIs or the platforms that run on Python when it comes to web development, at least. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how it is. It all depends on various other factors as well. We will further discuss in the next sessions. So what we were discussing, yeah, how to handle the test data. So we have Excel, we have JSON, we have XML, we have DB. So we would talk about these, how to read the data, how to store the data, how to maintain those data, right? We will talk about those. And then what else? What else is required? Integration, CI/CD, we talked about error handling, debug, how to handle, and then we would talk about
Git.
yeah. GitHub. Probably this is not the last topic. Somewhere in the middle it would come. Yeah. Git. This is a repository. So what is this for?
To store our kit. Yeah.
To
To
store?
store the cloud in to store our
Codes.
like codes in
Is it
cloud.
only to store our code?
And version controlling.
Right, version control. Version control system, right? So we would cover this topic before Azure DevOps integration because we require our code to be in a centralized repository such that we would be efficiently able to work and automate our pipeline, right? So we can connect easily to Git. Git is again an open source version control system. So to handle small to very large projects, right? So what is the full form of Git? Global Information Tracker, right? Global Information Tracker, right? So that is in short form, they have kept it as Git. Okay. So it's a distributed system. So meaning, so multiple developers can work on a project having a local copy of the entire project, right? So once you have the project loaded into Git, so I guess whoever are there here, like Devananda, Pankaj, Nitin, Naren, so everyone would be able to access it. They can bring that copy into their local. They can start adding new features, new code into it, right? And then push their changes. So wherein we would have branching and merging strategies. Very important for us, right? This is the core thing which each and every project would follow. Be it Git or GitHub. Sorry. So be it GitHub or Git, any tool, any version control tool, right? And now Git is an integral part of Azure DevOps. So we can, what is that? We can also start utilizing Git here. Okay. So it's in the similar lines GitHub as well. So if you have your repository in GitHub, you can connect to the GitHub and then use the branching strategy. Similar kind of branching strategy you can use there as well. Okay. So it's only where you store, that's all. Rest all the options would be same, like how to pull the latest code base into local, how to push the latest changes that you made from your local to the branch. So what is the main branch or the master branch, and what are the feature branches, why those are called as feature branches, and how the review system works, right? So once you have developed the code, somebody also would review it. So how this review process would work, we would discuss about all those things here. Code review, right? Branching strategy, merging strategies, code review process. So all that we would discuss here, right? So then what else? So at last, finally, it would be your
Any idea on GitHub actions?
GitHub actions.
Actions.
Yeah. Recently, we shifted from Git to GitHub actions in one of the projects where I worked.
If you can give some idea on it, right, it would be helpful.
Sure, I can. I mean, I can add that GitHub actions. So when you are using GitHub actions, then you no need to use Azure DevOps pipeline, right? So either one of these we would use. So we would go for the Azure DevOps, and then again, I can also provide some idea on GitHub actions as well. Okay. and then interview questions, more frequently asked interview questions, and then there would be also some task that I would give on a whole, like you need to come up with. So we would develop the framework, right? So framework is developed. So I would give you certain task. One, to automate one of the scenarios, and then the second one would be to come up with some unique identifier logic kind of. Okay, so these are the two tasks that at the end I would give you people, such that you also would try those and get back to me, right? So that would help you to see where you stand, and then probably you can also feel confident about whatever you have learned, right? But practice is must and should. So you people need to practice a lot, right? So most of the challenges, key challenges that we face in our day-to-day activities, I would showcase those and explain. Okay. I would provide certain demo over those. But it doesn't mean that only those challenges might be coming in your projects, right? So every day, every new project or every new application, there could be some other challenges as well, right? So somebody might face uh, what is that? Kind of what I could say, like the object identification itself is failing because of the element's dynamic nature. So how to handle the dynamic elements? We would talk about it, right? How to handle the dynamic change of the element properties. So we would talk about this, but that may not be the challenge for him or her in their project. So there can be some other challenge there, right? So day to day in the project, whatever challenge you face, probably that is a known thing for the community. I mean the test automation community, or it may be a unknown one, right? So we also have a community for Selenium or the estates, right? So they have a largest community. So we would also talk about that community. So where to look for any challenges that we have with Selenium, any kind of issues that you have with the latest updates that Selenium has provided, right? So we would also talk about those. So whom to reach, where we can post the challenges, and then probably if some other people have experienced it already, they might provide some comments to it, right? So accordingly, we can try out those suggestions. And if something worked out, we can again go back and tell to the community that yes, somebody has suggested this and it worked for me, right? Then the other people also get to know, okay, for such kind of issue which you have faced in your project, the solution is so and so, right? Why? Because there is a open source tool. There won't be any dedicated support for it, right? So we have a open source community. So we can get into that community and then, yeah, Bala.
So the thing is, with respect to .NET, right? I just want to know about system requirements, whatever it is, and what are all softwares we are going to install.
Right.
Yeah.
I would anyway showcase right from the installation, we would see everything. But yeah, so definitely we would need Visual Studio 2022 community version. If at all you people can download it, it's for free. Community version is for free, so that is required. And then .NET 8. Okay, so .NET 8 software development kit, you can download and install it locally. That's all needed.
Yeah. So we will be installing it as part of our curriculum.
Yes, yes, we will. Yeah.
And one more thing, I think last week we discussed about the timing, right? Is it possible
Mm-hmm.
to move it to 9:30 to 10:30?
Yeah, if others are also okay with that timing, then probably we can do that. So once the batch is finalized, then only I can able to request the people. Okay. So let's wait for it. I guess in next few days, probably they will announce a final batch of how many people we would have, and then accordingly, I will request the team and we will decide.